A day after introducing new penalties for those convicted of auto thefts, the province is now turning its attention to impaired drivers. If passed, those convicted of impaired driving causing death would face a lifetime license suspension. The new legislation will also require anyone convicted of impaired driving to install an ignition interlock device in their vehicle and undergo mandatory education. Immediate roadside license suspensions will also be increased for first and second-time alcohol and drug-related offenses. Yesterday, the province announced tough new measures for convicted auto thieves, including possible lifetime bans for repeat offenders. And with more on this, we're joined now in studio by Ontario's Minister of Transportation, Prabmeet Sarkaria. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me today.
Two extremely important issues that you've touched on the last 2 days here. I want to start behind the government's motivations to take these steps. Why these steps? Why now?
Well, we've seen in every one of our communities too many neighbors or too many of our own friends and family waking up to empty driveways. Or you've heard of stories of people barging into someone's home to get a key to their vehicle. 400% increase just in Toronto alone on break-and-enters for auto theft. So we need to get serious about this. Under the purview of the provincial government, we can do one thing, which is take away your license. And that's exactly what we're doing. We've consistently called on the federal government to increase penalties and stiffer and tougher penalties for those who are convicting or who are undertaking in these criminal activities. We want to see them kept behind bars. But the province can't enforce that, or nor can they make those changes through legislation. But what we can do is take away their license. So we are taking away license for anyone who's doing it and convicted for 10 years, 15, and a lifetime upon third conviction.
On the topic of auto thefts here, this is a lucrative industry. It's happening way too often here in the GTA. I'm wondering if you think that these measures, suspending driver's licenses, are enough to deter the criminals who are behind this issue. They can get violent, and they happen, as I mentioned, way too often. At times, maybe organized crimes plays a part here. So I'm wondering if you think this will respond and reduce theft.
That's a great question, and this is really one part of the approach to combating auto theft that we have under our control as a provincial government. When we look at it, we've invested over $225 million into guns and gangs, violence reduction strategies to give police more resources and tools, feet on the ground. We've also introduced auto theft grants that police forces across this province can tap into for better resources and innovation in technology to help track some of these criminals down. We're taking away their licenses now. But ultimately, we really think that the federal government needs to be harsher on these criminals. They're doing it because it's lucrative. You're right. $1.2 billion was the cost to the economy last year for these vehicles that were stolen between Toronto, Peel, and York. 25,000 cars were stolen, and people are having their homes broken into. So absolutely agree that this is only one part of the solution. We need to do more, and we're calling on the federal government to do their part and keep these people behind bars.
On that same line of questioning here, there are questions on whether or not the proposed license suspension could also be a subject of constitutional challenge here, as it might fall into the jurisdiction of the federal government. Are you concerned at all about that?
No, I'm concerned about doing anything and everything we can to keep people safe in their homes and to deter these criminals from taking action. I think the federal government has a responsibility and a duty to protect people, and right now people aren't feeling safe in their communities. But Premier Ford and our government will do anything and everything within our purview, within our power, to ensure that these criminals can't get away scot-free, whether that's auto theft or impaired driving. We're going to come down hard on them. We're going to give police every resource that they can use to catch these criminals. But once you catch them, we need them to stay in jail, and so that's why tougher penalties are necessary. This is just another part in the puzzle to ensure that those who do undertake in this sort of crime won't have a license to drive after.
We hear a lot about young people being the ones committing these crimes, which is, another concern in itself here. Do we understand the demographic involved in auto thefts? Do we know who's behind this crime?
Well, I think it's a very sophisticated, organized crime that's behind it. We've seen many instances in which the police forces across this province have worked not only within Ontario but outside of Ontario. Quebec plays a big part of it, and the Port of Montreal is a huge avenue in which a lot of these vehicles get out of this country. So we need to ensure that we are looking at all parts of this. That's why the organized crime element of this is a very significant part of which I know police forces and our government has focused on combating.
Do you think the measures you introduced respond to the fact that the folks behind these crimes are young in age?
Well, we believe that driving is a privilege, not a right, and taking away a license can be a powerful tool. But we absolutely think that regardless of your age, if you can pick up a gun and hold it to somebody's head and take their car, you should be responsible and you should be held accountable by the court and by the justice system and pay a penalty behind bars. And we urge the federal government to do that. But from our perspective, we'll do anything within our purview, and that is suspend your licenses and get you off our roads forever.
Okay, two announcements back to back these last 2 days. Another press release coming tomorrow and the legislation going on Thursday. What is your hope for these steps that you're taking? Will it be enough to address this massive problem?
Yeah, we're focusing on impaired driving as well. We're going to have the toughest penalties on impaired driving. So if you kill anybody while impaired, your license is gone for life. Upon first conviction now, interlock devices will be mandatory. This is really about safer roads and safer communities. You know, our government believes that we need to do anything and everything we can to give people the confidence that they can be safe in their communities and when they're driving on the roads. Unfortunately, we've seen a 30% increase year over year on impaired driving, either incidences or collisions in the last year. And so we needed to be stronger and we need to do more to prevent that. So we're going to launch a campaign to educate a lot of times younger drivers who sometimes think that after smoking cannabis or inhaling cannabis that they can still drive, educate the public on that. But also anyone convicted of offense has to undertake mandatory training through CAMH. So this is ultimately whether it be around auto theft, impaired driving, a suite of measures to keep our roads safer, especially also on the stunt driving provisions that we're also putting in for anyone that is speeding excessively on our highways as well.
Okay, sending a strong message to folks there on our roads. Ontario government set to introduce legislation tomorrow, Thursday. We'll, of course, be following that closely here on City News 24/7. Ontario's Minister of Transportation, Prabmeet Sarkaria, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.